Hello everybody, today we are going to create a network that allows Inter-VLAN using encapsulation 802.1q. So first we will have 3 VLANs and three switches and 6 computers. Let's create the end devices first. I will press Ctrl and click this PC so I can create many PC at once without going back clicking this PC and clicking it again to make a new one. So that's a fast way to do it. And then we need switches here in the bottom left corner, and go to switches, and we are going to use the switch. Again, pressing Ctrl and clicking on the switch, we will create 3 switches. And then lastly is the router, one router in the middle. This will enable inter-VLAN communication between the VLANs that we will create. Alright, first I want to rename my switch to switch 1, switch 2, and switch 3. The router name as well as router 1. And then cables, I'm going to use copper straight through, pressing Ctrl again and clicking on the cable, and fast Ethernet 1 connected to PC 0, fast Ethernet 2 connecting to PC 1, fast Ethernet 3 connecting to PC 2, and then fast Ethernet 1 in switch 3 to PC 3, fast Ethernet 2 to PC 4, fast Ethernet 3 to PC 5. Let me just rearrange all that so we will have more space and everything is easier to see. And then a copper straight through from in between the switches, switch 1 to switch 2, gigabit Ethernet 1 to switch 2, fast Ethernet 1, fast Ethernet 2, switch 2 to gigabit Ethernet 1 and switch 3. We are going to connect the router and switch 2 in gigabit Ethernet 0 to gigabit Ethernet 1. Alright. We can skip some time and everything will be registered in the switches. As you can see, they turned from orange to green, and you can do it in this with this button. So first what we are going to do is set up all the PCs IP address, default gateway, and subnet mask. But before that, I want to organize which PC belongs to which VLANs. We can go here, tools, drawing palette, just to show you. I will use purple for VLAN 10. Alright, I'm going to write the data here, VLAN 10. And PC3 will also belong to VLAN 10. And now VLAN 20 PC1 will belong to VLAN 20, and PC4 also belongs to VLAN 20. I'll write the data here. And lastly, VLAN 30 will be our third VLAN. PC2 will belong to third VLAN. PC5 belongs to third VLAN, which is VLAN 30. Just going to write the data here. VLAN 10 192.168.10.0 with subnet mask of 24. Let me just move it here. I forgot to add the VLAN 30 space here. Alright. Now VLAN 20 will have 192.168.20.0 network ID with subnet mask of 24, and then VLAN 30 will have network ID of 192.168.30.0 with a subnet mask of 24. Right. Now we have those information. Okay. Now we can set up the PC IP address, default gateway, and subnet mask. We will start with PC0. Go to desktop and IP configuration. Write down the IP address 192.168.10 because it will belong to VLAN 10, and the IP address will be 11. I like to start with 10. Alright. So PC0 and PC10. PC0 with 10, and the PC3 will be with 11. Let me just copy this. Alright. And our default gateway will be 192.168.10.1 with the subnet mask of 24, 255.255.255.0. And then PC1 IP configuration with IP address of 192.168.20.10 because it will belong to VLAN 20, and default gateway will be 192.168.20.1. And PC2 IP configuration. PC2 will belong to VLAN 30, so the network ID will be 192.168.30.0, but the IP address will be 0.10. Subnet mask is the same, and default gateway will be 192.168.30.1. So PC3 belongs to VLAN 10, and this will be 11, 192.168.10.11, and the default gateway will be the same as PC0. We will repeat this for PC4, IP address of 192.168.20.11 with subnet mask 255.255.255.0, and default gateway will be 192.168.20.1. Alright, and PC5, final PC IP configuration will be 192.168.30.11. Default gate subnet mask is 24, and subnet of 24. Default gateway will be 192.168.30.1. Right, we can skip some time to let that settle in and set up. And now we will configure the switches to have the 3 VLANs that we have here and assign this ports to their respective VLANs. We will start with switch 1 and enable configuration terminal, and let me show you first. Control Z to go back And let me show you first what is the Vlan Brief that we have by typing show Vlan Brief. And as you can see from here, there is only one default VLAN that is created here, and every port is belongs to this default VLAN with a VLAN ID of 1. So we are going to create a new VLAN, the 3 VLANs that we have, VLAN 10, 20 and 30. To create VLAN, go to configuration terminal and type in VLAN 10 and then VLAN 20 and then VLAN 30. Control Z to go back, and now we can see the VLANs that we have created in the show VLAN brief. You can see here VLAN ID 10, VLAN ID 20 and VLAN ID 30. We will change the name of this VLAN, going back to configuration terminal and selecting the VLAN that you want to change. I will select VLAN 10 and name it as IT, and go to VLAN 20, name it as HR, VLAN 30 and name it as Finance, FI. Go back again and I will show you what changes that we have made. Show VLAN Brief, and here we have VLAN 10 as IT, VLAN 20 as HR, VLAN 30 as Finance. Now we will set the ports to the respective VLANs. Port 1 will belong to VLAN 10, port 2 belongs to VLAN 20, port 3 belongs to VLAN 30. To set the ports, to assign the ports to the respective VLANs, we will need to go to configuration again, configuration terminal. Configuration terminal, and select the interface. Here it will be the port 1, FA01. Select that and change the switch port mode to access. So this will change. This will define the VLAN membership mode, and this puts the interface into access port. So switch port mode access, and then we will assign the port to a VLAN, which will be VLAN 10. Switch port access VLAN 10. And we will do the same for the following ports, which is interface fast Ethernet 2, define VLAN membership mode to access, and assign this port to VLAN 20. And for the last port in this switch, fast Ethernet port 3, put the interface into access port and assign this port to VLAN 30. Control Z, and we can show VLAN Brief again to see the changes. So port 1 will be in IT, port 2 will be in HR, port 3 will be in Finance. Next thing, we will configure switch 3 to have the same configurations. Create 3 VLANs and set port 1, port 2 and port 3 to their respective VLANs. So we will go to enable the switch, configuration terminal, and we will create the VLANs, VLAN 10, name it as IT, VLAN 20, name it as HR, VLAN 30, name it as Finance. Name is Finance. Yep. Now we'll go press Ctrl Z and see the changes that we have made. Show VLAN Brief. And here we have created the three VLANs. Now we just need to assign ports into this VLANs, which is port 1, port 2, and port 3. Go back again into configuration terminal, and then go to the interface that you want to change, FA01, and put the interface into access port, which is switch port mode access, and then assign this port into VLAN 10, which is switch port access VLAN 10. Same goes for port 2, interface for 2, and change put the interface into access port and assign this port to VLAN 20. Going to the last port in the switch will be interface 3. Put the port into access port, switch port mode access, and then assign this port into VLAN 30. Sorry, there was some background noise. I needed to stop the video for a while, the recording for a while, and now we can go back to switch here and show Vlan Brief to see the changes that we have made. Now we have IT, HR, and Finance, port 1, port 2, and port 3. After that, we are going to configure this last switch 2, to have a trunking mode as their interfaces. So we will change this interface, FA01 and FA02. When we change this port into trunking mode, this will also be changed automatically into trunking mode. So we just need to configure this. Go to command line interface, enable configuration terminal, and here we also need to create the VLANs, so we will just do that really quick. VLAN 10, name is IT, VLAN 20, name as HR, VLAN 30, name as Finance. Alright, we'll go back, show Vlan Brief to see that we have configured it correctly. Alright, we have done so, and now we can show interface trunk to see the interface trunks that we have. Right now we have none. So we need to configure this Fast Ethernet port 1 and Fast Ethernet port 2 to be in trunking mode interfaces. To do that, we need to go back to configuration terminal and select the interface range. You can do this because we will configure port 1 to port 2. If you have more ports in your switch, it will be faster to do a range instead of individually setting them to switch port to trunking mode. So we can do interface range from FA0 port 1 to port 2. And once that is selected, we can do switch port mode trunk. This puts the interface into permanent trunking mode, and you will see that this is also changed to trunking mode. That's why they are in orange. Alright, now we can go back, Control Z, and skip some time to let the configuration apply. Alright, I've clicked that 4 times and now it's all green. We can test for intra-VLAN communication. So that means communication between PC0 and PC3. communication between computers in the same VLAN only. Alright, so we can go PC0 to PC3, and you can see it's successful. That should be the same for PC1 to PC4, successful. PC2 to PC5, successful. Alright, but we can also check if Inter-VLAN is allowed, which shouldn't be. So it will be in progress and then failed. So that should go the same for PC5 to PC1, in progress and failed. Alright. Now we need to configure the router to enable Inter-VLAN. We'll go to the router first. Also, we need to configure this as a trunk interface, but we need to put this interface into trunking mode, but we cannot do that until we have set this up. What I mean by that is now the interface is down and we need to bring it up, and to bring it up we need to go to the router and configure the things that we need to configure from there, and then we can bring it up. So go to router, enable, configuration, terminal. We will need to go to the okay, let me first explain you what is VLANs are for. And the idea of VLAN is that you encapsulate multiple virtual networks inside of one physical cable. So this is 3 virtual networks that we have created, and we want to encapsulate that inside of a one physical cable, and that's the idea of VLAN. And then to enable that, go to configuration terminal and create a new interface, G0/0.10, and enable encapsulation. Encapsulation will be .1Q. And you will need to put the number of the VLAN ID that this interface belongs to. So it will belong to VLAN 10. And then we need to set an IP address for this interface, which will be the default gateway for VLAN 10. And VLAN 10, and the next interface will be the IP address of the default gateway of VLAN 20. So the IP address of this will be 192.168.10.1 with subnet mask 255.255.255.0. So if everything's correct, we can set that. And now go to interface G0/0.20, encapsulation .1Q, and this will belong to VLAN 20. And the IP address would be the default gateway of PC1. IP address 192.168.20.1 with subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. And next, the last interface we are going to create is G0/0.30, and then encapsulation .1Q, and the VLAN is 30. And the IP address we will set for this interface will be 192.168.30.1 with subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. Control Z to go back, and we can verify this changes and the interfaces we have made by typing show IP interface brief. So now we have created these sub interfaces for this interface, but they are all down because the main interface is down. So this is a subset of this Ethernet interface, a gigabit Ethernet interface. This is a subset, and this is a subset of this interface. So we need to set it up so that all the subset interfaces will be also up. To do that, go to router, configuration terminal, and interface G0/0, no shutdown. You can also write no shut to show in short form, but I like to write it full, no shutdown. And after that you can see that the subsets 0.10, 0.20, 0.30 is up as well. We can verify it again, Control Z, and show IP interface brief. And now they are all up. And we can close this. Now that this is up, and we can configure this to trunking mode as well. So just skip a bit of time. Alright. Go back to switch 2. Enable switch 2. And we will go configuration terminal. Select that interface G0/1. I believe it's G0/1. Yep, it's G0/1. And switch port mode to trunk. Alright, go back, Control Z, show interface trunk in the switch, and we should see port 1, port 2, and gigabit port 1 to be trunking. And let's close this, skip some time. I will do about 5 clicks on this. And now we can verify inter-VLAN communication. So first PC0 to PC3, that should be successful. Now PC0 from VLAN 10 to PC4 from VLAN 20. In progress. Failed. And then we can see it's failed. Let's skip more time. Alright, delete this. Let's go to PC0 and command prompt to ping 192.168.20.11, which will be PC4. Let's see if we can ping that. Yes, we can ping it. But let's see PDU PC0 to PC4. Successful. Alright. So now we have inter-VLAN communication using 802.1q.